Hey everybody, this is Guile, and this is going to be a video that's a little bit different from what I would normally make, but this thing is just so weird that I kind of felt like I I should go ahead and what the heck? Why not? Why not talk about this? This is the Kotaku PS5 review. Now, I don't really engage with reviews very often in really any form of subject. So, video game reviews, I don't really engage with them very often. There are a couple people and places that I'll, take opinions from. Movies, same thing. Music, same thing. But I'm not huge into following critics and stuff like that. It's interesting, but it's not a huge part for me. So when I heard about whatever the heck happened in this Kotaku article, uh, I thought, okay, well, it can't really be that bad. People are probably just freaking out about it. But then I decided to actually go and read it. Now, the article itself, I'm not going to read the whole dang thing in this video because, it is a hefty article. It's a console review. Clearly this should be, something fairly significant. But as I was reading it, and I did read most of it, not the whole thing. As I was reading it, the very beginning just came out a little bit weird. And this is the sentence that made me really kind of think about it. Well, there's two sentences at the very end of the opening paragraph. It said, "How would my boss, whose various PS4 reviews I've skimmed several times so as to glean some insight into what I should cover, review this thing? How can anyone at this very moment in time review this thing?" What? What do you mean? What what is it about this moment in time that's that has any kind of relation to the PlayStation and to this video game console? So right off the bat I thought, well, that's kind of odd. We're talking about a video game console. We're talking about an electronic product, for a hobby that people have. What that that's very weird. It seems odd, you know. But then the crazy thing is, it becomes a normal review right after that. It goes on. It has it talks about the specs. It talks about the aesthetic of it. It talks about some of the games. It starts talking about different aspects of it. But there are a couple things throughout the article that just are confusing. Then it gets to another point where it says, "I've also wondered if anyone even has the energy to care about, let alone the means to buy, $500 electronics anymore." Wait, the energy to care about? Means to buy $500 electronics anymore? Well, I mean, people buy phones all the time. I mean, there's definitely a market for it, but the energy to care about. I'm starting to realize there's something extra in this review, but for the most part, it's all pretty standard. It's what you would generally expect for a review. It's about the console itself. It's about what's available for it. It doesn't really seem to go too crazy, except for these small little hints. But then, continuing on, you get past the controller talk and backwards compatibility and the enhancements and how it feels like a next generation, the SSD, all this kinds of stuff. You get past it, loading times, frame rate. You keep on going, and eventually it gets to the thing. The thing that really just kind of threw the whole thing right off the edge. There's a section that says, "But does it really matter?" Let me read a little bit of this section for you. "This review has spent 3,000 words talking about the PlayStation 5, which is the most I've written about anything. It's as good a video game console as there has ever been. The combination of ultra high definition video, increased frame rates, high-end graphics techniques like ray tracing, and the lightning fast SSD make it feel like a real deal next gen successor to the PS4. And if you're not ready to give up on the previous console, the PS5 the PS5 reliably runs a vast majority of the PlayStation 4 library, with many of those games receiving upgrades to fidelity, frame rate, and loading times. Seems fine, right? But I'd be remiss to ignore all the reasons not to be excited for the PlayStation 5. Okay, so it's at this moment that I realized, okay, well, wait a minute. Everything has seemed really, really positive up until this point. What is it about the PlayStation 5 that has these stark negatives? Because I'm hearing something about this particular time. Then I'm hearing about the energy to care about, $500, and I'm thinking, okay, well, what's the problem with the PlayStation? What's the issue with the PlayStation? Because that's what this is a review of. It's a review of the PlayStation. Then it continues. The world is still reeling under the weight of the COVID-19 pandemic. You know, that's kind of a fair point. It's something that you can bring up. It's not too far to the side. That's okay. Okay, you can talk about that. You know, there is relevance to it. It continues. There are more Americans out of work right now than at any point in the country's history, with no relief in sight. Our healthcare system is an inherently evil institution that forces people to ration life-saving medications like insulin and choose suicide over suffering with untreated mental illness. What? What? Look, the finances, certainly something that you can mention, okay? And you can mention the finances through the lens of this global pandemic. That is a totally fair point. It's related to the console, and you know, you cannot review a console, you cannot review a product really without factoring in the asking price for it, because that is the value of it. You know, some people, I don't understand why in the world they argue this, but some people say you shouldn't talk about the price of something that you're reviewing. I think that that's absolutely ludicrous. If something is very cheaply built, but it's also a very cheap price to buy, well then now you should definitely be able to recognize that the value is good. If something is cheaply made, but it is very cheap to buy, well, now it's really not that big of a deal, and in some ways that can even be a positive. Whereas if something feels cheaply made, but it costs you a lot of money, and it feels like the ratio is way off, well, that's something that a consumer would need to know, because you cannot engage with the product, you cannot use the product without buying it. So if the asking price is unreasonable for what you're getting, that's an absolutely fair point to bring up. So you should definitely be able to talk about finances when it comes to a product. But this continued past it, talking about a healthcare system. That's starting to get a little extreme. It continues on though. As I'm writing this, it looks very likely that Joe Biden will be our next president. But it's clear that the worst people aren't going away just because a new old white man is sitting behind the resolute desk. Well, at least not this old white man. Our government is fundamentally broken in a way that necessitates radical change rather than incremental electoralism. What? 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 This is completely irrelevant. This has gone way off the deep end here. You know, you talk about the COVID-19. You have an argument for bringing that up, the financial aspect. You have an argument for bringing that up. I personally think that you should be able to talk about the finances of it. And if we're in a time where finances, uh, are noticeably different, then I think it's fair to bring that up. Okay. But this doesn't even feel like it's really hitting on that. This is just. What? We're talking about a PlayStation here, and for whatever reason, now we're talking about old white man? How is that relevant? Now, just to be uh, transparent with you, personally, I support Joe Biden as the president. All right, I don't. I my issue is not that he's talking about Joe Biden being the president. All right, because I mean it's a true statement. It looks like he's going to be the president. I mean, there are stuff going on, whatever. That's just a true statement. But it's irrelevant. I'm not I'm not taking issue with this because he's talking about Joe Biden. I'm taking issue with this because it's completely irrelevant to what we're talking about. We don't need to really discuss politics in old white men. That's not relevant for a video game console. He continues, the harsh truth is that, for the reasons listed above and more, a lot of people simply won't be able to buy a PlayStation 5 regardless of supply. Or if they can, concerns over increasing austerity in the United States and the growing threat of widespread political violence supersede any enthusiasm about the console's SSD or how ray tracing makes reflections more realistic. That's not to say you can't be excited for those things. I certainly am, on some level. But there's an irrefutable level of privilege attached to the ability to simply tune out the world as it burns around you. What? Okay, look. We could be a person that thinks about multiple things. All right? I have passions in my life. And some of my passions are drastically different from others. For instance, I love soccer. I love music. I love playing music. I did for over a decade, and I traveled around North America. I love the martial arts. I love all kinds of stuff. I've even started to like cooking. All right? These are different things. All right? When it comes to politics, personally, this is oversharing a little bit, but I just want to kind of, give you guys ideas. When it comes to politics, for me, I feel very strongly about maintaining the environment. I think that we should give a crap. I think that we should actively want to keep our planet nice. And I don't think that's a very extreme thing. However, when I am playing soccer, I'm not thinking about the rainforest. I'm thinking about soccer. When I am training, I'm not thinking about clean energy. You're allowed to think about different things. And you're allowed to not think about them as well. Everything that you do does not have to be seen through the lens of politics. And further than that, I would even argue that if you do see everything through the lens of politics, you have a problem. You can separate these things, and you should be separating them. If you're not, that is an issue that you need to deal with. And I think that we've got some issues here. I remember when I was growing up, and I'm not terribly old. I'm 27 years old. When I was growing up, my family did discuss politics, but we only discussed politics with each other. And we did them, we would do it at the dinner table. No big deal. But we would discuss politics amongst ourselves. And sometimes we would debate things. Sometimes we'd have a difference of opinion. But we didn't discuss them with other people. The reason being was that it wasn't polite. You don't have a dinner with someone and then start talking politics and arguing over it. That's stupid. There are times that you just have a freaking dinner. There are times that you just have a dinner and enjoy each other's company. It doesn't always need to be a freaking fight. It doesn't need to always be you trying to prove someone wrong. It doesn't need to be you railing against the machine every 5 seconds. Sometimes you just have a nice dinner. I think a lot of people are in a point now where, I think they've gotten too much into one mind, and they're seeing everything being connected through one lens, and that activism has to be first and foremost. Your politics has to be who you are, and everything has to be viewed in the lens of politics. That's a really nice shirt that you have there. Yeah, but there are kids in China who are starving. It's like, okay, man. I'm sorry I said you had a nice shirt. I think that this is kind of a case of not knowing boundaries. And I would be very surprised. I don't know who this person is, but I would be very surprised if they were over 30 years old. If they are over 30 years old, I would be a little bit disappointed. But I would be surprised if they were, because I definitely view this as being a kind of an issue of a younger generation having opportunities to have people listen to them and to score points, I guess. And that's definitely what this feels like. There's just no reason. There's no reason to bring this in. There's just no reason. You don't gain anything by this. I really don't understand. Continuing on a little bit. Sony and Microsoft chose a hell of a time to release their next generation video game consoles. I think the PS5 is a great machine, but it's tough to recommend when folks are literally fighting for their lives while residing in the richest country in the world. I was very lucky to receive a PlayStation 5 for the purposes of this review, despite the fact that I am comfortable enough to have bought one on my own. So, it's mentioning that, this is a crazy time and, people might not be buying this, but I would have totally bought it. I don't know. Something about that just kind of seems weird to me, but that's a small thing. But I just don't see the relevance of bringing so much politics, so much of it, into a video game review. There are cases, or a video game console review, I should say. There are cases when you have a movie that has a particular story and it draws parallels between modern day life. And it's totally fine to bring things up in that context because you're reviewing a story as well. And so if there are parallels, then it's totally fair to bring stuff like that up. But do I need to talk about politics when I'm discussing hardware? Is that really necessary? My issue, I think, with this is not... Look, as a writer, sometimes you try something. I can work with you a little bit on this. I can say that, you know what, you wanted to be different. All right, you wanted to look at things from a different point of view that you didn't think anybody else would think about. I'll try to give you that. Who the heck is supposed to be editing this crap? Who was supposed to be editing this? Because they should have the knowledge and the forethought to be able to look at this and say, completely irrelevant. This is a fantastic review until you throw it away into a political mess. Who was supposed to be editing this? Because I feel as though that person let this writer down. Sometimes as a writer, and I used to write. Okay? So sometimes as a writer, you try to do something unique. You try to look at it from a different point of view because you know that there are a million people who are writing the same crap that you are. You know, especially if you're reviewing something as big as a PlayStation 5. That's big. A lot of people are going to be talking about this, and you're going to try to put yourself in the forefront. You're going to try to get people to talk about your review. Sometimes you're going to make mistakes. If you're playing a musical instrument, you have a solo, all right? You want it to be good, right? Sometimes you try something, and sometimes it doesn't freaking work, all right? Now, granted, in this case, I think the writer really should have had the forethought to know that bringing politics into this to this level was really unnecessary. But I'm playing devil's advocate on this one. I'm trying to work with them on this one. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt, which whatever. I'm trying, okay? Whoever was supposed to edit this, they failed too, in my opinion. They dropped the ball on this as well. Because this makes your website look... It makes it... I'm trying to find the right word without it sounding really, really harsh. But it makes the whole website come off as being cheap. You know? And it makes it seem as though it's being run by people who have no clue what they're doing. And I know it's really easy to sit back in a chair and to criticize people's work. It really is. All right. But this is a big screw up. And this is a big screw up that didn't have to happen. You know? I don't know. This really stood out to me as being a horrible example of not having a life. Let me know what you guys think. If you read the Kotaku article in its entirety, you'll know that the majority of the thing was fine. The 99% of it, totally freaking fine. Very acceptable review. But this end just stomped on all of the good work that was done before it, and I don't know. I don't know how this happens. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.